This is the Gaumont British News, presenting the world to the world. Parliament recalled from the summer recess to hear Mr. Chamberlain's report on the international situation, and Sir Horace Wilson returning from a further interview with Herr Hitler. Then Mr. Chamberlain's moving speech on the wireless.
Armed conflict between nations is a nightmare to me. But if I were convinced that any nation had made up its mind to dominate the world by fear of its force, I should feel that it must be resisted.
Queen Mary and other members of the royal family arrived at the house to hear what the Premier would tell Parliament. Meanwhile, Britain prepared. Though there was still some faint hope of peace, precautions went ahead. Trenches in the open spaces. Certain underground stations closed by order for urgent structural alterations. Special buses were put on to take over the transport of thousands of workers who normally use these routes. ARP work continues. Countless men, women and children have been fitted and supplied with gas masks. Only by taking precautions may we be sure of safety. The evacuation of little children from the crowded city districts has commenced. There must be many heavy hearts. But how immeasurably heavier would the future be if it were not for this wisdom? Tomorrow may see the dawn of a brighter day, and tomorrow belongs to children. But now there is a job waiting for every man and woman. Already the response has been magnificent, but there is need for more help yet. Recruiting stations have been busy. May this, too, be no more than wise preparedness. In France, reserves have been called to the colors. Earnestly we pray that the sadness of these partings may be only the prelude to a speedy reunion. Britain has mobilized her fleet. Naval reservists of certain classes have been ordered back to the sea on this day when Parliament met to hear how still more superhuman efforts by our Prime Minister set the peace machine in motion once again. A four-power conference: Hitler, Mussolini, Daladier, and Chamberlain the peacemaker.
Meanwhile, there are certain things that we can and should do at home. Volunteers are still wanted for air raid precautions, for fire brigade and police services, and for the territorial units.
300,000 people by the River Clyde, a great host to welcome Her Majesty the Queen for the launching of Britain's new Mistress of the Seas. Though accompanied by her two daughters, this day our Queen seems strangely alone, lacking for the first time on any big occasion the escort of His Majesty. Grave affairs have kept the King in London. Nonetheless, there must have been comfort in the cheers of those who assembled for the launching of the world's largest passenger ship. Before the actual ceremony, our Queen spoke. A wonderful message, bravely delivered, in a time when we all need words of hope and encouragement.
I thank you for the kind words of your address. The King has asked me to assure you of the deep regret he feels at finding himself compelled at the last moment to cancel his journey to Clydebank for the launching of the new liner. This ceremony, to which many thousands have looked forward so eagerly, must now take place in circumstances far different from those for which they had hoped. I have, however, a message for you from the King. He bids the people of this country to be of good cheer, in spite of the dark clouds hanging over them, and indeed over the whole world. He knows well that, as ever before in critical times, they will keep cool heads and brave hearts. He knows, too, that they will place entire confidence in their leaders, who, under God's providence, are striving their utmost to find a just and peaceful solution of the grave problems which confront them. The very sight of this great ship brings home to us how essential it is for the welfare of man that the arts of peaceful industry should continue. Arts in the promotion of which Scotland has long held a leading place. The city of Glasgow has been for Scotland the principal doorway opening upon the world. The narrow waters of the Clyde have been the cradle of a large part of Britain's mercantile marine. So it is right that from here should come our foremost achievements in that connection. The greatest of the ships that ply to and fro across the Atlantic, like shuttles in a mighty loom, weaving a fabric of friendship and understanding between the people of Britain and the people of the United States. It is altogether fitting that the noblest vessel ever built in Britain, and built with the help of her government and people, should be dedicated to this service. I am happy to think that our two nations are today more closely linked than ever before by a common tradition of freedom and a common faith. While thoughts like these are passing through our minds, we do not forget the men who brought this great ship into being. For them, she must ever be a source of pride and credit, and, I'm sure, affection. I congratulate them warmly on the fruits of their labors. The launching of a ship is like the inception of all great human enterprises, an act of faith. We cannot foretell the future, but in preparing for it, we show our trust in a divine providence and in ourselves. We proclaim our belief that by the grace of God and by man's patience and goodwill, order may yet be brought out of confusion and peace out of turmoil. With that hope and prayer in our hearts, we send forth upon her mission this noble ship.
Would you graciously permit me, ma'am, to present you with this small souvenir of the occasion? A casket made in the reign of the first Queen Elizabeth and containing an album of photographs of the progress of the vessel.
Name her Queen Elizabeth.
Yes, no man has ever deserved more richly the title of peacemaker than Mr. Chamberlain leaving for the four-power conference at Munich. And there were happy faces among the British ministers who came to Heston to wish the Premier Godspeed on his journey. Also there with glad hearts were the German charge d'affaires and the Italian ambassador, Count Grandi.
When I was a little boy, I used to repeat, if at first you don't succeed, try, try, try again. That's what I'm doing. When I come back, I hope I may be able to say, as Hotspur says in Henry IV, out of this nettle danger, we pluck this flower safety.
We can say but little to our Prime Minister, for our hearts are so full of gratitude. But we can mean so much when we say, well done. The train from Italy drew into the station at Kufstein on the old Austro-Italian border, and Signor Mussolini, attending the four-power conference, was greeted by Herr Hitler. The band played for Il Duce the Italian national anthem. Then for the Führer, Deutschland über alles. Monsieur Deladier arrived from France by plane. At the Munich airport, he was welcomed with the Marseillaise. The French Premier drove to his hotel with Herr von Ribbentrop, and Germany's foreign minister then returned to receive Mr. Chamberlain. In little more than 1 hour after this last arrival, the four-power conference was at work. In the somber Führer house in Munich, 4 men of destiny labored to reach agreement. All the details of handing over the Sudeten territory to Germany were discussed, the dates and the manner of taking over, and the new frontiers on the map of Europe. And we give you history in the making, the actual signing of the agreement which meant peace for Europe. The decisions arrived at in Munich concerning Czechoslovakia were placed immediately before the government in Prague. Under the premiership of General Sirovi, it was agreed that Czechoslovakia would subordinate her own interests to those of the peace of the world. After that meeting, Britain awaited eagerly the return of its Prime Minister, its statesman hero. At home in London, Mrs. Chamberlain awaited the return of her husband. In his absence, she took her daily walk alone. Alone, yet with a wealth of companionship in the emotion of grateful hearts. "24 years ago, there was a war to end war. How soon we learned that that was just a dream. Millions of young men gave their lives. Then, the world recovered. But scarcely had the wheels of industry begun to turn again when the house of cards came crashing down once more. So our Prime Minister has come back from his third and greatest journey, and he said
that the settlement of the Czechoslovakian problem, which has now been achieved, is, in my view, only the prelude to a larger settlement in which all Europe may find peace. This morning, I had another talk with the German Chancellor, Herr Hitler. And here is the paper which bears his name upon it as well as mine. Some of you perhaps have already heard what it contains, but I would just like to read it to you. We, the German Führer and Chancellor, and the British Prime Minister have had a further meeting today and are agreed in recognizing that the question of Anglo-German relations is of the first importance for the two countries and for Europe. We regard the agreement signed last night and the Anglo-German naval agreement as symbolic of the desire of our two peoples never to go to war with one another again. We are resolved that the method of consultation shall be the method adopted to deal with any other questions that may concern our two countries, and we are determined to continue our efforts to remove possible sources of difference and thus to contribute to assure the peace of Europe.
there was no sign of British reserve as the crowds fought to get near the Premier's car.
I hope that motor running up didn't spoil the day. Oh, heavens, but...
As we travelled back with Mr. Chamberlain from Heston, we drove through serried masses of happy people, happy in the knowledge that there was no war with Germany. The Premier drove straight to Buckingham Palace. Here he was received by the King while London waited. And history was made again when their Majesties came out onto that famous balcony with the Prime Minister. Posterity will thank God, as we do now, that in the time of desperate need our safety was guarded by such a man, Neville Chamberlain.